Well, I'm not really sure. Um, really sure. Hey, okay. All right, we're live. Cool. All right, trying something new. Um, Greetings, everyone. This is my first time back on YouTube in a long time. Kind of ran out of steam there for a little while. So apologies for the absence. But not going to wax eloquent on that. Just going to try to get back into it. Today I wanted to talk about current events. Um, just a specific thing in mind. Um, Trying this new format here with the live stream concept, so I don't have to do quite as much editing or whatever. Just kind of talk off the cuff, and I don't know. We'll see where this goes. Um, so today I wanted to talk about the latest news. This came out, I believe, was this yesterday? I think this came out. This dropped. This article is actually dated today. I saw the headline yesterday, and you do not see that window, do you? Let me get this back up here for you. One second. Don't know why it's not displaying. It should be there. Hello. Always going to be technical difficulties. This is my first time doing live streams. First time using this software. I had it all set up. I thought it was gonna look good, and I don't know what's going on. So bear with me a second. If you can see the window, and you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, it's because in my little preview screen, I don't see the window. So I don't know what that means. Bear with me. I gotta figure out how to find my own channel. Man, you search Truth and Liberty on YouTube and you don't find me. That's because I've done like nothing on here. So I have to fix that. We will get that fixed. Who knows? Who knows how long this is going to last, by the way. Who knows what this will lead to. I'm just here trying to talk biblical worldview in the light of current events and in the light of what's going on. Yeah, you definitely can't see that. Okay, let me fix that for you. Many apologies. I don't know why, because it says it's showing the window, but there's nothing showing. Let's try this. Man. Hold on, I'm determined to figure this out. So everybody bear with me. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Don't want that. I want this. And I want this. Aha! And it's ginormous. let's fix that, and then we'll do this so you can actually see me, because that's the important thing. Let's zoom in here a little bit, and we are in business. Okay, yeah, so sorry about all that. This article actually says, well, I guess it was updated 9 hours ago. I saw this headline drop yesterday. So this is the latest in the fight against the mandate, whereas recently several different circuit courts stepped up and blocked it. Well, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals has now struck it down, or not struck it down. Sorry, misspeaking there. Several courts stepped up and put temporary blocks on it, whereas the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals has now said, no, we're going to remove those blocks here. Says the U.S. Appeals Court on Friday reinstated the nationwide vaccine or test COVID-19 mandate for large businesses, which covers 80 million American workers, prompting opponents to rush to the Supreme Court to ask it to intervene. So this fight is obviously not over. This ruling came from the Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in Cincinnati, which does not make me very proud. Cincinnati letting me down again. And lifted the injunctions that placed restrictions on it. So this is just in case you hadn't seen this headline, just so everybody knows where we stand right now with this whole mandate thing. And just to make it clear, Truth and Liberty really is just me right now. But I stand against the vaccine mandates. This is not to say that I am against vaccines necessarily, but I'm against the mandate for sure. And there are reasons for that. The primary reason is that as an anarcho-capitalist who believes in the non-aggression principle, I believe that nobody should ever be forced to take something like this against their will. While I could conceive of there being certain voluntary arrangements and business relationships or deals that, as long as there's no breaching of contract or anything along those lines, somebody might be willing to say, okay, I'm not gonna associate with you or do business with you unless you make certain provisions, such as maybe having a vaccine of some kind. I could foresee that being something that could exist in a market situation. I cannot support any sort of government coming in and making any sort of mandate that requires everybody to do this. Because now this is no longer a voluntary situation. Now you have people who are going to be vaccinated against their will. I will say this is better than the other half of this mandate which was for federal workers, where there was no testing requirement. So at least there's a testing option here, so that anybody who doesn't get the vaccine can avoid it and still test, which is great. Not great. It's not great. It's better than the federal workers who I personally, you'll find this surprising, being an anarchist who has a anti-government Facebook page and personal accounts on Facebook, which, by the way, if you ever knew me personally on Facebook, I personally have been canceled by Facebook for too much wrongthink. So if you wondered where I've been, I know I have like 50 subscribers on this channel, which is nothing compared to many other channels, but I don't take that lightly, and I appreciate every single one of you, especially if you're back now. This is my first video in a long time. It's a live stream. I know nobody's actually listening to me out there live, but I figure I turned on DVR for this, so I figure you'll be able to watch this after the fact, and hey, maybe you're back. So if you're with me, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I don't know where this would lead to. This is just my motivation for doing this is really just to put my thoughts out there and to try to speak what I believe to be the truth, which I feel is becoming more and more necessary in the midst of chaos and craziness and all the censorship and all of the groupthink and all of the newspeak and all of the insanity that's going on in the world. So Like I said, I don't know how long this will last. I have no interest in being overly careful to censor my speech for the sake of the powers that be here on YouTube. So if they take issue with what I'm saying, I may find myself gone in short order. I may find myself canceled by YouTube. But if that happens, I don't know. Maybe I'll try to hook up on Odyssey or some other platform or something like that, and see if I can keep the show going that way. So I don't know. We're just getting rolling here. But anyway, so yeah, so I absolutely oppose the mandates. And I would oppose the mandates even if I thought that the vaccine was a great idea, even if I thought it was perfectly safe, even if I thought it worked 100%, and even if I thought there was no moral hazard in taking it. I would still be opposed to a mandate because the mandate is a violation of the right of a person to make their own voluntary arrangements, which is an inherent right. It's not like a first order right. Everybody has the right to their own life, liberty, and property. But inherent in all three of those things is the right to make your own decisions about what happens with your body. And this is probably right up there with abortion. This is the issue that touches that the most. Abortion comes very close to that as well because there's the whole the pro-choice arguments have to do with a woman's body and what she can do with her own body. The great irony, of course, is that the liberals in our society, the leftists, are out there saying that a woman should have the right to do whatever she wants with her own body, but nobody has the right to make their own decisions about this vaccine. Whereas I'm consistent on both counts. I think that every individual has the right to decide what they do with their own bodies in terms of the vaccine, and also the child has the right to decide what he or she does with his own body, and should not have death forced upon him by the mother. But that's neither here nor there. So where we're at, this mandate is currently going forward, but there have been many appeals to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court will have to decide probably this week. I would think they'll probably come up with some sort of decision as to whether they're going to put a temporary stay until they hear the case, or as to whether they won't hear the case. I can't imagine on an issue of this magnitude, of this unprecedented level of overreach by the executive branch, that they would just simply not hear the case. So I wouldn't be surprised if they put a temporary stay on this mandate until they can hear arguments and then give some sort of decision. So absolutely be praying about that whole situation. Be praying that this court would be wise and just and respond appropriately to this. I did want to sort of riff, though, on some of the logic here in this article, because they have this quote here from the decision that or from the opinion that the Sixth Circuit rendered in this first paragraph here, and it didn't make me laugh. It made me sort of chuckle with disdain, if you know what I mean. It says here, it is difficult to imagine what more OSHA could do to rely on to justify its finding that workers face a grave danger in the workplace, said the opinion. It is not appropriate to second-guess that agency determination. It's not appropriate to second-guess that agency determination, considering the substantial evidence, including many peer-reviewed scientific studies on which it relied. Okay, so there are several things to unpack here about this. The first is just to remind everybody who may not be familiar with the details of this mandate. They are getting around some. It was clever the way Biden did it. I think Biden sort of knows. He's like the way he set up this mandate. He's sort of tacitly admitting that he's committing a tyranny that the founders did not envision him having the authority to do, and that this should not be considered constitutional. And his claim then to, or his doing this should be struck down by the Supreme Court. So he tried to be very clever with the way he did it, and he made it a provision that OSHA, which OSHA stands for the Occupational Safety Health Administration. OSHA is an organization, or is a federal agency that regulates and polices workplace safety issues. And so, classic example would be, safety standards in factories. Are you handling your chemicals safely? Are you handling your machinery safely? Are you operating your factory or whatever in such a way that you are putting your employees at risk of death or bodily harm just from the fact that they're working there? And so OSHA would come in, and they have a whole bunch of regulations and laws as far as what you can and can't do in your factory, and I'm not aware of all the details of that. My dad actually dealt with a lot of those regulations. I should have him on to talk about that, maybe if ever anybody is interested in that. But the point is, that's the existence of OSHA. OSHA's there to make workplaces safe for employees to come and work. And any workplace that is putting their employees at risk is in violation of OSHA's regulations and will end up being punished or fined. So Biden then, instead of just mandating that everybody get the vaccine, he said, well, I think OSHA should consider COVID to be a workplace safety issue and regulate it that way. This is why he's mandating that private sector employers mandate that their employees get vaccinated or get tested. So he's going about it in a very roundabout way. Like if he had come out and just said, everybody has to get vaccinated, the Supreme Court could have come out the next day and be like, okay, nope, this is not happening. It wouldn't even need the Court of Appeals. You would hope. I don't know if the Supreme Court would actually do that, but they would definitely have grounds to come out and say, we're not doing this. Definitely not doing this. No way. But Biden, being clever, comes in and says, okay, well, we're gonna mandate that businesses mandate this, and we're gonna do that through this OSHA thing by calling it a workplace safety issue. This is classic government, classic progressivism, where we just simply play games with words, and everybody knows. This is why if the Supreme Court does not strike this down, I'm going to be very, very disappointed in them. Now, it's not to say that it would be a new experience for me to be disappointed in the Supreme Court, but for them, if they come in and they say, oh, well, yeah, I mean, OSHA does have the right to regulate workplace safety. It's like, you're missing the entire point here, which is that this is not actually a workplace safety thing. Even if, and now I as an anarcho-capitalist, I disagree with the very existence of OSHA as an agency of the federal government to mandate certain provisions about workplace safety. Not only do I think that is a violation of freedom of association, it's a violation, with freedom of association, it's just a term that summarizes the fact that if I have liberty and if I have the right to my property and my life and my liberty, I should be able to talk to whoever I want to or work with whoever I want to. And the government should not have the right to tell me who I work with and who I hire and etc. But I also think it's unnecessary because OSHA is a federal agency that comes in and regulates these things. In the absence of OSHA, you would easily have insurance companies that would regulate that, because anybody who runs like a factory, all it takes is the first guy who runs a factory who has a major accident, and then all of a sudden he gets sued or something like that, and he has a major financial windfall, or not windfall, sorry, the opposite of a windfall. He has a major financial disaster there, and it bankrupts his business and he goes out of business. Every other business looks at that and goes, oh, yeah, well, we don't want that to happen to us. We need to get insurance. Well, now, in order to get insured, the insurance company is going to come in and say, okay, well, we're not going to insure you unless you do this, that, and the other thing. I actually had this thought because I was watching Tiger King to catch up recently, and there's that episode where the one employee gets her arm bit off, and Joe goes in and refunds everybody's tickets, and he's got that scene where he stands there and he goes, I'm never going to financially recover from this, and that just clicked off like a word association or a thought in my brain. I'm like, well, don't you have insurance? And I was like, oh, he probably doesn't, because he probably doesn't operate his zoo in such a way that the insurance company would feel is safe enough for them to actually insure. So he probably doesn't actually have insurance. So I mean, you could say, well, that's a counterexample. So you'd have Tiger Kings there running around, and which of course is a weak argument because Tiger King exists under the purview of OSHA and other such government agencies. So it's not like government has solved that problem anyway. But anyway, I digress. That's the purpose of OSHA. Even if we grant that OSHA is a legitimate agency and that they're a legitimate function of government, even not constituted as a state, even constituted as a state, even if we grant all of that, you have to be honest about the fact that COVID does not fit what they exist to protect, right? OSHA is all about employers running a workplace that is dangerous to the employees. And like, people who work with tigers, or people who handle dangerous chemicals, or people who work near harmful, dangerous machinery that could harm them if they don't follow certain safety protocols, right? That's the point of OSHA. It's about dangers that arise from the workplace because of the work that you're doing there. COVID isn't that. COVID is just a sickness. And even if we agree that it's deadly, even if we agree that it's a serious pandemic that should be taken seriously, it's still not a workplace safety issue that OSHA should be around to deal with. So Biden is very clearly playing games here with this and trying to get away with, what's his word, malarkey, some malarkey. And if the Supreme Court doesn't come in and strike this down, I will be not too surprised, but also surprised and very disappointed in that. But then the second line of what they were saying here, or no, the first line, back still in the first line. It is difficult to imagine what more OSHA could do to rely on to justify its finding that workers face a grave danger in the workplace. Again, so workers face a grave danger in the workplace. They face this danger everywhere. It's not a workplace issue. If it's dangerous, you face this danger at the store or at church or anywhere else you would go. So this is not a workplace issue. But then the idea that they're saying, if it's difficult to imagine what more they could do to rely on to justify this. The phrasing of that, like, implies that they are admitting that OSHA has actually failed to justify what they're saying. So they're saying, you fell short of a standard of justifying your rule, but we can't imagine what else you could say, so we're just going to act like you justified it anyway. That's not how this works. I think the burden of proof should be, now I'm not speaking as a lawyer or somebody who actually understands this from a constitutional standpoint. This is just my opinion. But the burden of proof for this should be, like, if you actually have, like, a government says, we need to do this, from the standpoint of the fact that the government is always bearing the sword, you need to have and be able to show clear proof that what you're doing is good and necessary. Otherwise, you literally are bearing the sword against people who you probably shouldn't be. But of course, this is nothing new for state governments, and particularly our state government. It's this logic is always backwards. It's like, well, we'll give them a pass on this. They didn't really prove it, but we don't know what else they could say. And so, that we're just going to give them a pass. It says it's not appropriate to second guess them. Well, yeah, it is. It actually is. The point of the courts is to second guess the other two branches of government and to say, you need to show that what you're doing here is constitutional. That's why you exist as a court. So it is appropriate to second guess that agency. But the reason why they won't second guess them is because of substantial evidence, including peer-reviewed scientific studies. Now, I want to know what studies, because I don't think there's any peer-reviewed studies. There hasn't been time. We're still only, 20 months into this? And studying COVID has proved very difficult, because you can't exactly just sit there in a lab and do studies on this. There have been all kinds of studies flying around, and you can find studies claiming just about anything. And in fact, I would point you to Tom Wood's website, which I should have looked up off before I actually came on the stream here. I don't know let's see here. Let's see if we can find this. I can't off the top of my head. Oh, here we go. Is this it? Oh, no, this was not. He has a website somewhere. I should have looked up to actually link. Maybe he links it here. I don't know. ThoughtWise.com/COVID. Of course it's that easy. Of course it's that easy. COVID resources, article. What I'm looking for here is that site he set up to where, he's got those mask charts, and you're supposed to go through and guess, which one had lockdowns and where and everything. And the point of all of this is that you can't tell. You would think that they locked down here, or they started masking here, or whatever, but it's completely random. All the data and all of the comparative studies between different locations that have tried different things seems to indicate that masks and lockdowns and vaccines just hasn't worked. And so, yeah, I don't know what evidence or peer review they've actually published or shown. But it seems like they are not expecting a very high burden of proof from the Biden administration as far as whether or not, this is allowed. So it seems to be, what I'm reading between the lines here is that we have certain districts in the federal courts that are more conservative leaning, and certain districts that are more liberal leaning. Apparently, I, being in Ohio, live in a more liberal leaning district. I would have expected something like this to come out of California, but apparently it's come out of Cincinnati. Of course, it was the Fifth Circuit, and I think there was another one, but I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was, that was there, who had come out to block the mandate. But now this is going to the Supreme Court. So be in prayer. And as it pertains to, I just wanted to say a quick word, as it pertains to, being Christians who are Reformed, what should our approach to this mandate be? Now, I am not speaking as a pastor. I am not speaking as somebody who has any sort of authority over your life. I would consult your pastor. I would study the scriptures. I would pray about this. But my thoughts are, if you're at all familiar with my philosophy of government, which I believe is very reformed, although many, many people would disagree with me on that. I also believe it is correct in its handling of the scriptures. I do not hold to the typical analysis that you'll hear from a lot of people, which says that, we have to obey unless the government is telling us to disobey God. I believe that our duty to God is much more positive and broad. Let me back up. I would agree to that under a certain way of thinking about what it means for the government to tell us to disobey God. I think our duty to God is much more broad in its thought process, to where I have a positive duty to live wisely and to make conscientious decisions about my life. and to care for my family and to serve my neighbor and my church. And I therefore have a positive duty. And anything that the government comes in and says that is not part of their direct charter in Scripture, which, not to digress, but as I've talked about before, I don't think the government's charter necessarily means that a state is valid or necessary. It could be a local magistrate in a small community. It could be the head of a covenant community. It could be a king. It could be anybody who bears the sword according to what Romans 13 describes. It could be a state. It could be an ANCAP government. It could be anything. The point being, anybody who bears the sword, any way that they bear the sword in keeping with that description, which is they're there to punish wrongdoers. Wrongdoers being defined according to God's law, not according to man's law. And anything outside of that, they're running counter to my duty to live my life, to worship God, to love my neighbor positively. For example, God loves a cheerful giver. Paul talks about how he doesn't want anybody to give out of compulsion because God loves a cheerful giver. I have a duty to give out of gratitude and to give out of love. But when the government says you have to pay welfare tax, you have to pay tax so that we can have this wealth redistribution system and give to the poor, they are robbing me of the opportunity to fulfill that duty to a certain extent, because I cannot now give that money freely out of love. I am compelled to give it begrudgingly to the state, which I'm not going to digress on all that, because I don't expect the state to be wise or godly stewards of that money anyway. Point being, I think that applies to a lot of things, and particularly it applies to my health. So my key religious objection to the mandate is that I am a steward of my own life and my own body, and I therefore have a duty to wisely care for my own body. And if my conscience and my wisdom leads me to get the vaccine, that's my decision. And the government is not to come in and force that upon me. That is a violation of my own not right responsibility to God to handle the temple of the Holy Spirit that is my body that he has given me. And so I think we as Christians need to approach it from that standpoint first, that this mandate is not within the scope of what God has appointed government to do. Therefore, I don't think that they have the legitimate authority. And because of that, I think that technically it would not be sin to disobey. That does not mean it would be wise to disobey. I think there's two issues in Romans 13 when Paul tells us to be in submission, and I think one of them is wisdom, clear conscience, not being in trouble with the government when when we would otherwise be free in order to share the gospel. So we need to be wise. I'm not. This is not legal advice. This is not spiritual advice. This is just my opinion. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. But if you're concerned about this and you're concerned that you would be committing some sort of sin by refusing to get the vaccine, I'm not going to tell you that you're not sinning, because there are circumstances that might make that the case. But I am going to tell you that in a vacuum, no, I don't think you would be sinning to refuse to get the vaccine. Even though the government says do it, they don't have the authority to say that, and you don't have a duty to obey that. It might be wise still. You have to weigh that in your own mind. If it will cause you to lose your job and you can't get a job anywhere else because everybody's mandated the vaccine and now you can't provide for your family, you have to consider that. I'm not going to tell you where to come down on that, because you have to use your own wisdom. There's also the fact that technically, according to the Constitution, the government doesn't have the authority to do this. And so even if you are of the mindset that says, well, we do have to obey the government unless what they tell us to do is to disobey God, well, in that situation, if you come at it from that angle, they're not even obeying themselves. They're disobeying their own Constitution. And so just like you could say, like, if the federal government says one thing, but then, the state countermands with what the Constitution and your rights are and everything, you could appeal to to the higher authority to say, hey, don't take my rights away. Or sometimes there's the lesser magistrate where you would have the lower magistrate saying, hey, no, we're not going to follow that unjust law that the higher authority says. When it's a matter of justice like this, and you have conflicting authorities on that, I think you're totally fine to take the authority and follow the authority of the law or whatever that is actually just and is in your favor. So the Constitution does not give any authority to the federal government, to the president, to mandate this in any way. And so I don't think that you have a duty, even under that Republican mindset way of thinking, to say that, oh, you have to now do this because the government says so. I don't think that's the case. Anyway, I could go deeper into that, but I've got kids getting into it in the background. I don't know if you can hear that, and I've got to run soon. So hopefully this has helped people. If not, it's helped me to be able to get something out there, and that's where I'm going to end it for today. So peace.